A short story by Paul McCann, The Tree of Life. The year was 2070, and inside Sanctuary City, the celebrations for Earth Memorial Day were taking place. People were enjoying themselves in their own life, underground in their own areas. As the rain pelted down on the rocky surface above, underground storage dishes automatically opened up miles above the city on the surfaces of the planet. The sound of loud thunder belted out, but no one ever heard it deep down in the surface of the planet. All they could hear was computerized music that was continuously piped through the speakers of each underground life zone. As the lightning bolts struck the laser-driven sensor turbines that covered the electric power grid that was distributed through the vast underground network around the sanctuary city. After the storm was over, life returned to normal. Earth Memorial Day celebrations continued, watched closely by the warlords and zone keepers. Each new zone area that year, the celebration of Earth Memorial Day would take place. There would be partying and there would be time for reflection. Reflection time lasted usually for about a week, with daily news reports of the chemical winter above and the broadcast of the last days of life above on the planet. The zone residents were told stories of mayhem and destruction and graphic details of the first of the nuclear attacks. Then it was told how those who had survived the war built underground sanctuaries. It was now the only place known where humans could survive what was to come. For the radiation fallout and the dark eons of a chemical winter. It was ordered that no one could ever leave Sanctuary City again. They were ensured that there was enough resources to live in the underground zones for at least 15 generations. Even with all that information, no one was sure what it was really like up on the surface. But one thing was for sure, and that was the security around the city. It was very tight, and no one ever thought about escaping the underground zones. No one ever questioned the authorities. That was no one except Danny. The perimeter of Sanctuary City was guarded by the warlords who patrolled the zones and made sure no one walked the streets outside the zones. And the zone keepers made sure that no one ever left their zone. Danny was a rebel who pushed himself into the faces of the authorities. He was never happy with life underground. His inquisitive mind eventually got the better of him, and so he planned to escape. Danny decided that reflection time was the perfect moment to break out of Sanctuary City. And as the tight grip of security was eased during reflection time, Danny made his way through the zone and began to explore the outer perimeters of the city. He crept along through the air conditioning blower tunnels to the upper surface boundaries. Unnoticed by the guards, Danny climbed up the chute towards the planet's surface. Every 10 meters, he avoided laser light alarm systems by deflecting it against himself with a mirror. He brushed off spiders and other bugs along the way to the surface. And finally, Danny came to the last outlet of the air conditioning system, and after cutting through the rusty bolts, he pushed open the steel grate and climbed head first out onto the surface of the planet. He got to his feet and looked around. Then he started to walk over to boulders and rubble that were lying scattered for miles and miles like a wilderness. He kept walking and walking. It was getting cold now, and shelter was hard to find. Still, he kept walking for 3 days and passed, and time was slow. And finally arrived at the edge of a desert of ice. From inside his pocket he pulled out a small telescope that had been left to him by his grandfather. He looked through the eyeglass, and the desert seemed to stretch out as far as the horizon went. He put away the telescope and took the bag that hung from his belt. He opened up the bag and checked the food and water supply within. There was maybe enough left for a few days only. He also took out a picture of his grandfather from his pocket and read the message on the back that read, "To Danny, my only grandson. I shall never be at rest until life on the planet returns." He put the photo away and he pulled his collar up around his neck, and then he started to make his way across the desert of ice as the bitter winds cut through the coat and burnt his skin like fire. Nothing changed for days. Everything looked and felt the same. After his water ran out, he crushed some, and then, with the crushed ice that had drained, there was enough water to keep him alive. It seemed like 4 weeks now he had been in the desert. Mile after mile had zapped his strength. Now he was about ready to collapse. Danny had just about given up all hope when a strange apparition in the foreground beckoned him. It was his grandfather, calling him to come closer. Danny had just about given up hope when this apparition began to touch and inspire him, and he drew closer to his grandfather and the bright light that was flashing. And in that flashing light there came an image of a golden ball above in the sky. It was shining down on a green place with a strange looking object upon the ground. Danny made his way there. It felt warm in the night. The strange green growth covered the ground, and it was soft to the touch, almost like hair. A four-legged creature climbed up upon this tall wooden object on the ground. This strange structure, it seemed to have a green growth at the very top of it. Around the bottom of the object was a pool of water. It was clear and very, very inviting. Danny threw himself down and began to drink. The silence was broken by a deep voice. "Hello, stranger and foe." Danny got up on his feet and he said, "Who said that?" "I did," came the reply. Quite shocked, Danny said, "Who are you?" "The tree before you, man. Yes, it is I, the last living species on the planet Earth," came the answer. "What is the golden ball above?" "It's called the sun. After many years of being blocked out, now it has returned again to warm the earth." Danny sat down on the ground before this tree and asked a very cautious question. Why do you call me foe?" "Because I've watched over the years. I've seen you, man. I've known you. Everything you have done to this planet. Yes, man, you are my foe. You have transformed the green lands of the earth into dust. You have destroyed all living things on the planet. The earth is barren. I am all that remains." Danny was horrified. "You say we destroyed all life?" "Yes, man. Once there were oak trees and birds that perched in their branches. There was also fruit and many forests full of animals and waterfalls. And now there is nothing, just me. For this, you are held responsible. There is nothing left. Evolution is gone. The previous world has perished. Danny went over and waded through the pool of water. He stood beside the tree and lifted his hands in the air, and he wept aloud and bitterly. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me, tree. Is there any hope at all for new life?" "There is a choice. Man, the choice is new life, and you should choose carefully what you must do, what I ask, and then there may be some hope for the future." "What must I do?" "On my branches I have the last seeds of life. Bring many helpers to planet all over and plant these seeds. With the passing of time, new trees and plants will emerge from the ground. You will need to build homes and a community. Eventually, spread new life over the entire planet's surface." "If I tell them back in Zone City all of this, they'll say I'm crazy." "Then perish below the ground, man. Or live. The choice is yours." With that, Danny thought, and he returned immediately to Sanctuary City. When he got there, he told everyone about the tree. It took a lot of convincing, but eventually he was able to lead a large group of citizens out of their zones, and they had to fight off warlords on the way. They believed in Danny, and after defeating the zone keepers, they took charge of Sanctuary City. Oh, it was a beautiful sight when a new future began to develop in and around what once was an icy desert. Homes were built from rubble and stone. Under the warmth of sunlight, the ice had melted, and gardening began. Around the Tree of Life, there were digging and ploughing and raking and planting, and little shoots soon sprouted up everywhere. After Danny died of an old age, his children continued to rebuild and protect all life on the planet. They were amongst the most respected of all of the leaders on the planet. And once again, life flourished, and the future was one of hope for all humankind. The end.